Traveling through the deep woods, you see a harmless little woodland creature sitting on a stump. Venture too close, and you discover the creature's true nature. Today I will talk about how I made 2 sets of custom wolf in sheep's clothing monsters, and perhaps more importantly, read my community page responses about the owlbear hatchling version. They were really interesting. The wolf in sheep's clothing first appeared in 1980 in the Expedition to the Barrier Peaks module, and was reprinted in the original Monster Manual 2 in 1983. A very interesting ambush vegetation monster that actually started out as an alien. But let's just talk about the crafting right now. I took some of these stumps that I found at the Goodwill by the pound, and I thought that these would be perfect for an owlbear version. These owlbears are actually miscast duplicates from when I was trying to figure out a way to mass produce my little owlbear hatchling. So I'm very glad to be able to use these for something. The eyeballs are going to be coming from Goodwill by the pound finds, where I use various sized crafting beads to create the eyeballs on the end of the eye stalks of this classic monster. It's very helpful. I like taking shortcuts like that. I clipped off the bases, which was actually very easy, and figured out how I wanted to attach them to the stump. Originally, I was going to maybe have them kind of peeking out of a hole, but I figured it was just easier to just fill the holes in with hot glue and then do a little bit of texture with green stuff on top. And then just have the owlbear sitting smack dab on the top of the stumps. Mixing up green stuff is always interesting. I actually, with larger projects like this, I like to let it sit for a little bit, let it get tacky. I used a screw to screw in a little hole to make the hole bigger so the larger eyeballs would fit on the armature wire that I'm using as the, armature of the eye stalks. And I also used the little drill that I had to drill out holes in the wooden stump base so the eye stalks could actually fit in there securely. So this miniature is going to be very durable. So I already dropped it once and it did not break. And I'm using some little wooden pots that I also found at the Goodwill by the pound, and I'm covering them with green stuff to make these smaller stumps for the more traditional looking wolf in sheep's clothing. I'm using my usual kind of amateur method of, you can definitely tell I did a better job with the sculpting on certain parts of this. I'm still getting used to sculpting. Every time I get a chance to sculpt, I get a little bit better. So again, if a complete amateur like myself can end up sculpting like something like this, then you can too. I used just kind of a twisty, I don't know how you say it. I just basically poked and prodded it until there was an outer shell of green stuff on the armature wire, and then I just kind of got rid of the, I got rid of my fingerprints as best I could. On something like this, it's not, you don't really need to be perfect or anything. Here I found a lovely thing. One of the viewers on my channel actually told me that parchment paper does not stick to green stuff. So this is actually very helpful. If you wet green stuff and then you kind of smoosh it down with parchment paper, it actually is very easy to get a nice level surface if you're doing something like this. And then very carefully I got the texture of the wood grain on the top to go along with the texture that was already there. Because these things have 2 holes, and they are only going to seat 1 owlbear each. And now I'm going through the thing of making the tiny little green stuffed teeth, which was always a pain, but well worth it. Here you can see the completed forms of the more traditional monster, and I ended up deciding to take the easy route and do some press molds of a metal bunny that I had to make the little bunnies that go on top of it. I could have tried sculpting it, but these bunnies are so small in 28mm. It was just easier to take an existing miniature and just do a press mold with green stuff and Oyumaru sculpting material, mold making material, and yeah, they turned out okay. All painted up, these little bunnies look very good, and I was happier with the paint job on the larger owlbear stumps. But you know what? These look good, and I think my traditional-looking wolf in sheep's clothing monster here looks dead on when you compare it to the original Monster Manual artwork, or rather the artwork from the module, the Barrier Peaks module. But yeah, goofy. I think the size was a little bit off, but I'm not really worried about that. It's just a really fun thing to have on my shelves, and who knows, I might break it out during a game one of these days, just to see if anybody gets it. Here is the owlbear version. I was very happy with the paint job that I did on the stump, because I based it on watercolor instructions, how to paint a stump. And you know what? I think it looks really nice. Instead of your traditional way to paint wood, I actually painted it from lighter to darker as you're going out to sort of get the feel of dead wood, and then just simple paint and wash on the top. And the eye stalk's got a slightly different color. There it is, and it's googly-eyed, just glory. So I put a picture of the owlbear hatchling on the tree stump in my community tab that said, while traveling through the forest, you notice an adorable owlbear hatchling sitting on a tree stump. What do you do? My viewers did not disappoint with their comments. I sit down and sketch the hatchling, start making notes about the young owlbear as a traveling monsterologist. It's very rare to see an unprotected owlbear young. So obviously, as a monsterologist or somebody who noticed, it's kind of weird to see an owlbear hatchling just out on its own. By observing it carefully and taking sketches, I think immediately this person in the game would immediately realize that there's something off about the owlbear if the owlbear was indeed not an owlbear and a wolf in sheep's clothing. New pet! Definitely gonna try to feed it. Okay, so this is probably gonna go bad either way, because if it's a real owlbear, the parents are gonna be close by. And if it's not a real owlbear, obviously, this thing's just gonna get eaten by the monster. I take a picture, then walk away slowly for miles. I like this one, because either this person is considering a setting that's like a modern day setting, or like they're just taking this as a question like, hey, you see this out when you're out in the woods, what do you do? And they didn't take it as like in a game. They're like, if you were like walking in the forest in real life and you saw an owlbear cub, what would you do? Yeah, obviously, if you saw this thing in real life, yeah, take a picture and walk away slowly for miles. That's probably what most people would do. I yell, owlbear, and pet it. Once again, not really the smartest tact. Look for Mama and Papa Owlbear. Some very common sense answers, and I think this is like the best one. It's just like, wait, owlbear hatchling. There's probably adult owlbears around here. So, yeah, so very good answer there. Someone just commented fireball, which probably a bit of an overreaction. Someone suggested toss it some food and move carefully away. Also a pretty good tact, because if you toss it some food and it was a wolf in sheep's clothing monster, then it would ignore the food, because so it's just basically like a little nodule that looks like an animal, but it's not really an animal, so it couldn't eat the food. So that's also a very reasonable, well thought of answer. Run as far as I can. I do not want to deal with, period, owlbear, even if it's a baby. And what if it's even worse than an owlbear? Being very careful with that answer. So, don't want to deal with a owlbear hatchling, even if it's a baby. Other side of the coin, I say hello and sit with it for a bit. Uh, I feel bad. Some of these answers, obviously, they're playing a much more whimsical D&D game than I usually run. Some person says, whip out my trusty butterfly net and try to snag it. Again, somebody whose D&D games are more akin to Pokemon than Dungeons and Dragons. That's certainly an option. And then the last one is, I put it on my shoulder. So again, somebody wants to take this owlbear hatchling and just treat it like it's a parrot. Yeah, and again, I must say, it is very interesting to see the variety in answers to this. Because, that's literally, some of these are night and day. And it really just goes to show how different D&D is for different people. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please let me know if there's any sort of crafting project I should tackle next.